Now everyone knows about the first sit hunting strategy where you go into a tree stand and obviously the first time you sit there is the best time, the best chance you have at shooting a mature buck especially. Now let's face it, you know, a lot of stand locations, we have stands out here even that if we went and sat, we'd see does and fawns moving almost every time we sit. But to go in and say, well, I'm gonna go into this stand and shoot a mature buck, one of the oldest ones in the area, in this little area of the woods, it's hard to do that every time you go out. And the thought is, of course, first sit, best opportunity, you're hunting an unpressured stand. And even they've done studies showing that, you know, this is how much your percentage of opportunity goes down with each sit. But I'm here to break that and to help you know how to break that first sit. And in the first sit, you know, I have to admit a lot of my bucks, probably 50% of my mature bucks or more have been shot on the stand for the first time for the year, but it's because I don't hunt a lot of those stands very often. Last year, my buck was shot in Minnesota here on the land. It was the 4th day of gun season, shot with my bow. It was probably about the 5th sit of that stand. Jen, the time before, had shot a real nice mature buck, and Dante had sat in there. I sat with Dylan there once or twice. But, you know, we're able to hunt stands over and over again with a high quality opportunity with those subsequent sets, and I want to talk about how you do that. And it's really important. What I find as a general rule is the more you need to rely on a first sit hunting opportunity in a stand location to produce your bucks, produce those mature bucks for you, the worse your property is managed. The better your property is managed in those stand locations, then the less you have to rely on that first sit, because you can get in and out of that stand location and hunt it effectively without spooking deer. I'm going to talk about the setups here in this particular stand. It's a stand we call the Beaver, and we've enhanced this greatly. Last year I had 5-year-old 45. He actually sat at the water hole here, oh boy, for 20 minutes right at dark. I had a hard time getting out. I had to wait for him to move on. It took a while, but as a 5-year-old does, he just stood there right at 23 yards. I couldn't even turn my cell phone on to let anyone know that I was still in the stand. Jen was wondering where I was at and why I wasn't back yet, and because our house is just over there about 500 yards around the top of the hollow. So anyways, great encounter, and that was the first time that I sat here in the stand. So we have those opportunities, but this is a good stand, and this is one that can produce all year long. The way we do that is we're not going right back in the middle of the cover, in the middle of the movement, in the middle of the bedding area. We're hunting the edge, and we're hunting an important edge though. For example, if you look behind me, this is all mature timber right here, really open timber. We don't want to cut down that timber. We don't want to improve it. We don't want to make bedding area, because we want to come down to the stand location right over here next to the Kubota. We want to come into that and blow our scent up into that mature timber. That's very critical. It's critical that we blow our scent there. It's critical that we blow our access, our noise actually enters through that mature timber. And then when we get here, we're getting to the edge. And getting to the edge, meaning I have a lot of cuttings here that I cut in the winter. And those cuttings are designed to either put deer about 50, 60 yards down behind the thick brush, or if they're moving through the area, they move right on top of these cuttings, which is where we want them for a shot. If you go down below here, we spend a lot of time cutting bedding area down here in the bottom, and that bedding area extends from about 50 yards this way to about 300 yards that way. Really big bedding, and then there's big bedding on a point over here about 300-400 yards away, and then created a lot of bedding over that way about 150 yards. So we're coming into kind of like, if you imagine a kind of a lopsided bow tie, where we have bedding up there, we're hunting that funnel right here, and then we have big bedding down below. We're just coming into this outside edge of movement. We're not even coming to the backside of bedding. Bedding is down below 50, 60 yards or more. When you're on that edge and you have bedding extending for 300 yards, yeah, something could bed on the edge right here, but likely they're in interior a little bit more. What that does for us when we come into this is more doe habitat up here closer to the food sources, and then we have room for bucks back there. So everything's in a really tight window, and we're just coming to that edge. Now we choose in an area like this, we have a water hole. And so we installed this water hole last year. We had a lot of really good luck, really good pictures here. And there's reason for those deer to come to this edge then. Now when we get up top, we have this movement. This is just accenting this movement. Kind of think about, we're adding this water hole to the middle of the bow tie, where we expect to see deer on that funnel. Because we have this precision movement right here, we have a mock scrape, we have the water hole, we have the edge of the cuttings is more of a tornado zone that funnels them up here. We have bedding that way, then we can offer a really precise location. When we have a precise location, then we know when we come into the stand, we're not spooking as many deer. When we leave the stand, we're not spooking as deer. Of course, when we're on stand, we're blowing our scent the right direction, we're not spooking deer. And when you look at this, we have big food that way, we have big food over that way. We have a nice little field up here. And in that field, first year we had it planted in food because we wanted to clean it up, kill the weeds. And then immediately the second year planted in switchgrass. So this is the third growing season of switchgrass up there. We have switchgrass up there because what does a big block, it's about 1/3 of an acre of switchgrass mean? It means that deer won't bed there. It's blocking our access getting in and out. We can blow our scent towards that switchgrass. Now we have a couple rabbit huts up there. Pheasant are in the area, so we have pheasant, rabbits. The cuttings along the edge for the rabbit huts gives us some grouse. So it's great for wildlife, but it really represents an area where we can blow our scent into just right there, 70, 80 yards back into an area we know deer are not going to bed because it's a solid patch of switchgrass. So that's key too. So we've looked at everything on this side is non-deer. Everything from the middle of the bow tie, the sides of the bow tie and down are all deer all the time. We're coming into this precise point. If we were coming into the back side of the bedding, we're more likely to spook deer. Afternoon, we'd have to be a morning only hunt. We like this because it's a transition between all these areas. So we can come into this area in the morning, we can come into this area in the evening, and these deer largely are traveling this direction of that bow tie, and we don't spook deer. So with that precision, what does that let us do in the end? It lets us hunt this stand over and over and over again without spooking deer. This is not a first sit wonder stand. And we don't like having those on the property. If we feel like we have to go into a stand and the best sit is going to be our first set, that's a really bad thing because that means we're being invasive, we're blowing our scent into deer areas, we're spooking deer. I'll give you the opposite of what this is right here. The opposite is going into a 1 acre food plot, putting one of our favorite redneck blinds out in the middle of it, and then every time we get in and out of that stand with total disregard of morning, evening, or where the deer are at, we're spooking deer. That is truly the definition of a first set stand, where you can't get in and out of that stand without spooking deer. So every subsequent set, I mean, you go into an open food plot like that a lot of deer are coming to, and you sit in the middle of it. And out, now if we're in portions of Iowa, Kansas, Kentucky, some of the really good premium states, I call them fantasyland states, where there's not a lot of hunting pressure, you might be able to get away with more sits, but eventually there's a diminishing return even in those states. But that is the true definition of a 1 sit wonder stand, where you go into the middle of a food plot, you spook those deer, and by the 3rd or 4th sit, you don't see a deer. So you went from several bucks, several does and fawns, doe family groups coming into a certain food plot. You go there and sit, you have a good sit or not, shoot a deer or not. Next sit you go in, half as many deer or less, and probably the older ones are not there. By the time, again, you get into that 3rd or 4th sit, they're just not there. That's a 1 sit stand location, and that's where a lot of those studies have been completed. When we go into this green plot, we drive our ATV in, well, but we park 100 yards away, so we're being careful, and then walk in 100 yards even though the deer heard you half a mile coming, and we sit, you have a decent sit, the next sit, the next sit, the next sit. So I even know people that save their stands till that magic date of November 5th or November 6th, and they go in and they say, well, I'm going to use it at that point. Folks, if you have to wait, it's either bad hunting strategy, bad access, bad stand locations, bad combination of habitat improvements. Think about your stand locations. Can you get away with multiple sits in a row without spooking deer? Always remember, when you leave a stand location, you go back to your buddies, your family, your friends, and you talk about what you saw. Talk about what you spooked. That's what's really important. You come into this stand location, it's really cool if we saw a monster in there. We saw a couple does here, but if we spook deer getting in and out of there, we don't see that monster down there. We don't have a chance of shooting them later. We just don't see those does anymore. That's what you really need to be concerned about. And if you really are concerned about how many deer you're spooking in and out of your stand, and you're not spooking any, you have very low risk of spooking any, guess what? That 1 sit wonder stand that you thought was a 1 sit wonder stand turns into 5, 6, 7, 8 sets throughout a season. So that's how you get the most out of some of your preferred setups. And hopefully you have all preferred setups on your property. We try not to have any 1 sit wonder stands. We want to be able to hunt them multiple times. What does that do overall? It pushes our percentage of opportunity It doesn't matter if you're managing private land or public land. It's the same way. I hunt the same way on public land. I want to go into a spot, especially when I'm not just going in for 2 or 3 days and burning it out. I'm actually need to manage that public land set. I want to have stands that I can hunt over and over again. Sometimes you have to go all in on public land. You're trying to beat others to a spot, whatever. But most of us have to manage our sets. And if you manage your sets to not be one-hit wonder or one-set stand strategies, then not only will your property improve, the amount of bucks and does you see overall, your ability to hold bucks, attract bucks, and advance in the next age class, mold to make up your herd, improve your herd dynamics, but you have a lot more fun, and you'll have a great hunt this fall, every fall and beyond. Hey folks, I really appreciate you watching, and I want to invite you to check out our main website, whitetailhabitatsolutions.com. I'm going to miss all these, but we have seed to offer, hats, articles, web classes, books, consultations, and even a new podcast. I think we have 17 podcasts out there right now for you to listen to. So we have a lot to offer. Most of all, if you don't want to buy anything, I'm going to keep offering free videos, free articles. We have over 600 articles on the site. And most of all, thank you very much for watching, reading, listening, being a part of Whitetail Habitat Solutions. If you want to check this stuff out, awesome. Links are in the description.